Leinster see off the Tigers to set up a mouth-watering quarter-final against La Rochelle. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Leicester in this one, early on they win a penalty. Bird changes his bind in the maul. They decide to go up the line. They go to the front to Liebenberg, but Leinster, wise to a furlong, tackles him into touch. Leicester keep coming forward. Cronin makes a line break, offloads the Visa. Then they recycle and Pollard goes over to score. Great start by Leicester, and Pollard converts his own try, 7-0. Leinster then find a bit of tempo and they force a couple of penalty advantages. Doris and Porter with good carries in there. Ross Byrne splits the posts to make it 7-3. Leinster then looking to play quickly at every opportunity, and they're forcing penalties at the breakdown. It allows them to get back into that Leicester half, and then they just slice them open. Good work by Henshaw, and then Dan Sheehan takes it to the line and puts McCarthy through a hole. He gives it back inside to James Gibson Park, who goes over to score. Byrne converts for 10 points to 7. Leinster hit the lead. Robbie Henshaw then makes a half break out wide. Gibson Park puts Sheehan through a hole out wide, and he returns the pass back to Gibson Park to go over to score. Gibson Park also earlier in the move, he did it a couple of times tonight, just that cleverness to, he gets tackled, he releases the ball, gets back up and goes again, and gets, himself in a better position. He did that in the lead up to the try there as well. And then Byrne hits the conversion kick to the left and wide. It's 15 points to 7. Leicester then win a penalty. Sheehan not releasing in the tackle. Pollard slots the kick from in front of the post as Leicester stay in touch, 15-10. Leinster then, they come forward again. They're probing at that Leicester defence. Henshaw puts Osborne through a gap in midfield, and Gibson Park there in support. He takes a pass and goes under the post for his hat-trick, converted for 22 points to 10. And that was really the purple patch for Leinster in the game. Leicester then come forward. Some good carries from Hassel Collins, Cronin in there, Kata doing well too, get them into the 22, but then McCarthy turns it over and Leinster can clear. Leinster then get a penalty, and Lowe, he decides to take it quickly. They eventually work it out to Sheehan on the left wing. He puts a nice little grubber through, but Leicester decide to get the ball off the field for half time, 22 points to 10 at the break. Into the second half then, Leicester coming forward, making ground into the 22. They go to the width, and Lowe knocks it on deliberately. He gets a yellow card, and we have a Timo check for the penalty try, but we can see Larmer is there covering behind, so it's no penalty try. Tigers decide to go to the corner, go to the maul, and it gets some momentum as they go over the line. James Cronin is the scorer at the back. Pollard hits the post of the conversion for 22 points to 15. Leicester back in this one. They're then aggressive in the defence. Baird gets isolated and Liebenberg turns the ball over. There's space out wide and they spin it out there, a long pass, but Henshaw reads it and he intercepts it and has a free run in under the post, converted for 29 points to 15. If he hadn't missed that, it would have been a totally different situation, because Leicester, they had the space out there, they had the numbers as well, and if the pass had gone to hand or Henshaw had missed it, it looked like they were in under the post themselves, and then it would have been a totally different game from there on. But this one, it gets converted, so we're at 29 points to 15. Leinster then win a scrum penalty, kick it to the corner. Lowe back on from his sin binning. They win another penalty for hands on the ground and they opt for a scrum. Conan comes off the back of the scrum. He powers through a Pollard tackle but drops the ball as he goes to score. Try is chalked off. Good defence from Liebenberg there to get a hand in and dislodge the ball. Ross Byrne then gives just a terrible pass to Gibson Park on the edge of his own 22. It was kind of like like they were only a few meters apart, and he throws it over his head under absolutely no pressure. It was one of these where, a long kick comes from Leicester. He's passing it into Gibson Park just to whack it back up the field, but it's just absolutely terrible. Leicester then attack off that scrum. Hassel Collins does really well to step, and he gets into space, and all he has to do is give a pass, and they're in the corner. But it's a terrible pass, and as bad as Burns' one to Gibson Park, honestly, and the move breaks down. Leinster then, they lose Ross Byrne to injury, and he's got to be a worry now for next week. He's replaced by his brother Harry. Leicester attack off a scrum, and Frawley, he goes for the intercept, but he drops it. Should have held that onto that. I'm not sure whether he would have had the pace to go the length of the field, but it certainly would have been a deep break into that Leicester 22, and maybe recycle could have been a try. Who knows? But it was just poor hands for him, maybe just taking his eye off the ball for a second. Leinster, though, win a penalty at the resulting scrum, and they're able to get rid of it. They then make a break through the middle of that Leicester defence. Osborne puts Beard through a hole and onto Conan. He's there running that support line and goes under the post. No drop ball this time as he slides over. Byrne converts for 36 points to 15. It looks like Leinster are home and hosed, and you just think the game's going to peter out from there. But it's not, a great finish from Leinster's point of view, honestly. Leicester, they get a try back. Kelleher overthrows a 5-metre defensive line out, and it's a gift for Charlie Clare. Just, comes over, sails over the top of the line out right into the breadbasket, and he just flops over to score. Pollard converts for 36 points to 22. Leicester then, they got the upper hand in closing minutes, winning scrum penalties, making ground with their maul, and they go to the corner from a penalty, but Leinster turn it over and kick it up the field. And then Leinster finally get the ball off the pitch to finish the game. It was 36 points to 22 at full time. Leinster at times look really good in the game, and other times, there's a lot of worries in there about, kind of switching off, and the way that Leicester were able to do the things that La Rochelle do really well, get the maul working, put pressure on in the scrum, and also isolating some Leinster players as well. The kick receipts weren't great either, especially when Keenan wasn't around to take the ball. So plenty of stuff for Leinster to work on. But we're going to have a quick look at the stats, and then we'll talk about both teams again in a second. So let me pull the stats up here. Again, stats, for whatever reason, they're never completely up to date after directly after the game, but we'll see how it is. So tries straight away is wrong. It says 3 tries to 1, so that's definitely wrong. So we'll skip that for now. We'll have a look at the attack. Meters made kind of looks more realistic. 477 to 329. So Leinster on top there. Clean breaks 18 to 6. Defenders beaten 27 to 21. So Leinster having most of the front foot ball, and they created those tries really well, but it's the other periods in the game really that need to be worked on. Passes then 87 to 125. Territory 31% to 69. They can't give that much territory, can see that much territory against La Rochelle. Defense then 139 or 33 tackles to 84. Tackle percentage 86 is kind of where you expect Leinster to be, honestly, because again, we talked about it previously, their defense isn't just about first up, it's the scramble as well. Leicester 76%, they certainly won't be happy with that. And we've also got turnovers 1, then 2 to 1. Didn't have a huge bearing on the game, but if there had been a crucial turnover towards the end there, like that one that they did get, Leicester, led to that Henshaw intercept try that could have been potentially Leicester back into the game. Instead, set piece then, lineouts 8 to 13-1. Just 73% for Leinster is not good enough. They're going to have to improve that. 87% for Leicester, though, is decent. Whatever is going on with the stats, in the official Champions Cup website, they're not recording line-out steals for, I don't know why. Scrums one then looked completely wrong because it has 1 to 3. Definitely felt like there was more scrums in the game than that. So again, we'll come back, or we'll skip that, should I say. Kicks from hand then, 27 from Leinster, 29 from Leicester, but Leinster making more meters, 855 to 741. Again, James Lowe's big boot really helpful for Leinster there, although Leicester did put pressure on him early on and they forced a couple of swift kicks from him, but they couldn't keep that up for the rest of the game. Retained kicks then, 3 for Leinster, 6 for Leicester. That's a worry again for Leinster. Again, a lot of the time the ball was coming down and they were letting it bounce, or there was no kind of clear indication of who was going to get it if there was no Hugo Keenan around. And you need other players to step up, whether that's going to be one of the forwards or one of the wings, whether like Larmer or Lowe or whoever, but somebody has to put their name on it and not make it a lottery then. Next then onto the breakdown. So most of the stats again not in from there, so I guess we'll skip that. Discipline looks wrong as well. Has 4 penalties to 5. That can't be right for a full game of rugby. I definitely heard the referee's whistle go more than that. It's probably, I would imagine, something kind of similar to that in terms of the ratio, but it probably ended up being maybe like 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 or 9 to 12, something like that. But we won't know unless it gets updated right now, because I'm refreshing to see. And no, it's not. Okay, so those are our stats, or some of the stats that we can take from it. Others not so much in terms of the believability of them. But let's talk about the two teams. So we start with Leicester. Leicester, last year they got absolutely destroyed by Leinster. That was at the quarterfinal stage, right? Because they kind of limped through, like, one of the worst games I've had to sit through. I can't remember who they're playing. Was it like someone like Montpellier, or it was someone like that? I think it was a French team, but it was just an absolutely terrible game to watch. And I'm glad I only had to watch it once, honestly. And then they got pummeled by Leinster. This one, at times, as I said, Leinster were on top of them, but there was signs there from Leicester that they were able to get at the Leinster team, and that's something they got to take heart from. Obviously, they're not going great in the Premiership at the moment, but you can see that if they can get their game going, they can cause problems for some of the top teams in Europe, and that's a good point for them. But they only did it in patches, and it's sometimes a long road to get from kind of patchy performances like that to being able to produce a kind of 80-minute performance that would get you through successive knockout stage games. I don't think they're there at the moment for that, but maybe maybe next year could be a completely different story for them. Maybe they hit their straps a little bit more and they can progress from there. But at the moment, they're still kind of in that kind of limbo between not kind of pool fodder, as it were, but not a realistic threat either to lift the trophy. Leinster, they got through the game with the win. It wasn't an amazing performance. There was some really good play in there from them, but they've got to step up now for the La Rochelle game. I think both they and La Rochelle have to step up for next week. I'm pretty sure La Rochelle will. Leinster have to match them, or even go beyond that as well. And they've got to, the purple patches that they had in this game, got to see more of that. And then the switching off and the kind of getting, bossed around towards the end that happened to them as well. They've got to cut that out, and it means that, you know, the forwards have got to step up for a full 80 minutes against what's going to be, you know, a bruising La Rochelle pack, and it's going to be a hugely tough game for them. Doesn't matter whether they're at home or not. The La Rochelle, they went down to the Stormers. It's a tough place to go, and they were like 13-0 down, 16-7 down, and they came back to win the game. You know, and you don't do that by a fluke. They did the same twice against Leinster as well, coming back to beat them. So Leinster know that they've got to be more than a score ahead going into the last couple of minutes. You know, they've got to be like maybe 10 to 15 points ahead coming into the last couple of minutes, and even at that, you're still not guaranteed that you're going to get through, you know, because La Rochelle are one of those teams where they can score in the last minute and then receive the kickoff, and they still have that belief that they can create another chance to score again, you know, in the red zone as well. So it's going to be a tough game for them. But let's look at some of the positives. Okay, Keenan was back, and you know, he looked decent, and then also, you know, Henshaw looked good at 13 as well. Like Turner has been playing there mostly in recent weeks, but you know, he looked decent beside Osborne in there as well. And you know, Osborne has to get some credit for the way that he's performing at this level as well. Gibson Park was just out of this world. I thought the back row in the first half were really good, and Conan, when he come on as well, had nice impact. But then I felt that you know, Doris went out of the game a little bit in the second half when the back row was kind of rejigged when Conan come on, and also Bird. We saw kind of more of the grit from him in the first half and less of it in the second half. But still, you know, I feel like he's a better player this year than he was last year as well. So that's a positive. Joe McCarthy is a massive positive as well. Maloney beside him put in a decent shift as well. You know, Porter still, you know, around the park, great. In the scrum, still has issues, needs to be fixed. You know, Healy did well when he come on though. Alalato as well, coming on for Furlong, I thought was decent as well. Obviously Sheehan, amazing. Kelleher, issues with his line out when he come on. I'm gonna leave it there though, because otherwise I'm gonna go through the entire squad. But you get the picture. You know, it was they did enough to get through a round of 16. This performance will not be good enough to beat La Rochelle, so they've got to kind of find another gear for that quarterfinal.